Okay, baby. Oh my goodness, we're live. It feels like for me that it's been many, many moons since last I was on the mic. I'm very excited to be back, but we got to let it breathe just for a second. Bring on the Facebookers and the Instagrammers, and we're going to get things cooking.
That
Looks
sounds
like
kind
we're
of
good.
dirty.
Yes. Welcome in, everybody. It's the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me tonight is Mr. Producer himself, Scott Kennedy. Zach is out this evening. Scott, what's good, dude? How is you? How have you enjoyed Week 14 slate of games?
It's been good. I watched mostly college football, to be honest with you, this weekend. I wasn't sure I was going, and then I turned on a couple games yesterday and saw a couple pretty good football games, and then the Blues were on early this morning against one of their rivals and got a win. And then I watched some Falcons, and about midway through the fourth quarter, I went and blew leaves off of my lawn because I'd seen enough to know how that game was well decided. And like I said, I see your title, and I've seen some of the comments. It doesn't really matter what everybody else does. I'm like, yeah, but that's one of the fun things about the bye week. The
Yeah.
bye week is we're kind of in the clubhouse. We're sitting there at 8-5. Now let's see if anybody else trips up. That's a good thing to go into your bye on a 3-game winning streak and see if you get any help. And if you don't, so be it. You've got your own momentum, and now you're going to come out of this thing healthy.
Well, to qualify, there was a few games that the Broncos, real quick, for people who just to set the stage, that had the Broncos had some rooting interest in. Jets, Dolphins. You wanted Dolphins to lose that game. They won. Then you had a rooting interest in Steelers, Browns. You wanted Browns to win that game if possible. Steelers won. And then the Jaguars, Titans, it was pretty much meaningless. Both teams are 3-10. Jags won. And then tonight, Scott, Chargers, Chiefs. That one, look, the Chiefs are going to win the division, so just let them win the division. It's a
Right.
big enough gap. But so tonight, you kind of want to be rooting, if you care about seeding, you kind of want to be rooting for the Chiefs to beat the Chargers. But yeah, and I agree at the top of this chat, like you mentioned, Scott. Um, hey, we don't need help. The Broncos are in control of their own destiny, and that's true. But you want to pad that 2-game cushion as best you can.
Yeah, I'm not going to turn it away. I just because I don't necessarily need the help doesn't mean it wouldn't be appreciated.
Exactly.
So yeah, the Broncos are in good shape. Take care of business. They have earned that right through continually improving from week 1 through week 13 straight weeks. And then when you can survive like that, you didn't have any decimating injuries where you're, even a bunch of little injuries. You've, for the second straight year, and this isn't a coincidence, we can get into this too. You've been relatively healthy for the most part compared to where you were 2-3 years ago.
Oh yeah.
That now you can get some of those bumps and bruises. So because nobody's 100% at this stage. You hear players say that all the time. Everybody's a little banged up. I've got my ankle's a little sore, shoulder's a little sore. I got a little bit of hip, shaking off the concussion I didn't tell the coaches about. Little things that now you can come back refreshed.
Yeah. I mean, even Bo Nix, had that back 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see, to my knowledge, and was on the injury report, but we didn't see him getting treated for that on the sideline against the Browns on Monday night. But there are several key Broncos could use a little R&R, and this bye came in handy for a competitively relevant team, including Zach Allen, PJ Locke, Brandon Jones. The Papa Bear checking in with a super chat early before we went live because that is his way. He's part of the MHH family. David McElrath, much love and respect, brother. Says, good evening, Broncos country. Zach, he's out tonight. Deacon Scott, hashtag God bless the USA, 10-7 plus, MHH for life, Denver Broncos for life, Buckham ×3. Let's go, Bo. SEAL Team Nix. Word. Thank you, David. Love you, bro. Taylor Christensen also checking in. Thank you, buddy. Saying, hey, guys, we got to worry about winning our games first before we worry about others losing theirs. But definitely New England, New York Jets would have helped for sure. I don't know about who's on bye? Patriots are on bye.
Who'd the Patriots play?
So I think he meant Miami, or maybe he meant, I don't know what he meant. But yeah, that's the thing is, look, what we're saying is, you could use, if you can get a little help, you're going to take it all day long. And when you're on the bye, Scott, that's really all we have to pay attention to this week is how are these teams kind of around us doing? Did they win? Did they lose? I think the biggest one that, in all honesty, Scott, could impact the Broncos' fortunes is the one that's going to go down tonight because what are the Chargers, 8-4?
Yeah, I think this one would make it so that your head-to-head game, if everybody takes care of business, your head-to-head game could be for second place in the division
and seeding supremacy. So, do you want to go play? You probably are more knowledgeable about this than I off the cuff. We can look it up. But do you want to go play Buffalo in the wild card in Buffalo?
I think you get
at the
3 on the road, and right now,
wouldn't it be Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh, yeah, it'd be right now. It'd be Pittsburgh.
So, take your pick. Both of them formidable, but that's the
I'd rather play at Pittsburgh than at Buffalo.
Same here. Even though Russ, gotta hand it to him, dude. He's been rolling. What do you make of this newfangled version of Russell Wilson, Scott?
Russ, he's just and again, thank you, Taylor. I think I was reading yours when I was thinking about, yes, you take care of your own business, but it doesn't hurt. I'll take a little help, but the Broncos have earned the right to sit back and relax and take. They've taken care of business to this point, so their destiny is in their own hands. But what do I make of Russell Wilson? Russell Wilson didn't have a bad year last year. Compare it to, statistically, it was the best year the Broncos have had in several years. And I said at the beginning of the season, I said it all summer, actually, if Bo Nix puts up the same stat line that Russell Wilson did, he'll be rookie of the year or close to it, which is why I think 26 touchdowns against 9 interceptions.
Yep.
That's about what CJ Stroud had last year.
And barely close. Over 3K passing.
Yeah.
He got 2 games early. So,
but it was, that's true also. But it wasn't the right fit. Sean Payton is an egomaniac, OCD control freak. And Russell Wilson plays backyard football. He's one read, turn his back, run, spin, and look for it, which for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are built defense first, defense running game, and then whatever we get after that is kind of a bonus. Yeah. That fits. That's not a bad fit for Mike Tomlin right now, and he might get himself another contract in Pittsburgh next year.
It looked like it might be a good fit when they signed him. So, and I'm happy for him. And if the Broncos end up leapfrogging the Chargers in the AFC seeding, that's going to be one juicy storyline in the AFC playoffs. Oh my goodness. The Duchess jumping in with a generous super chat. We love you, Michaela. You know this. Mount Rushmore member. Oh, the family right here. And she brings up, I can't believe I didn't think of this when I was bringing up Scott injured Broncos that could really use the bye. But what is the status of Riley Moss for next week? Hashtag Nix the Fix. Great question. We haven't had any access to Peyton this week because it's bye. We'll hear from him tomorrow. So hopefully, Scott, we're not going to get an update on Moss. Let's face it. We're going to have to just
I'll go ahead and tell you what he's going to say. If you
go ahead.
Riley Moss will probably be limited, and he will say something along the lines of, he'll be limited right now. He was limited today, but don't want to get too much into it, but we like the way he's trending.
Or he'll say, I'm not going to discuss injuries.
No, that'll be it. That's not going to discuss injuries. He'll say, we like the way he's trending.
But yeah, good point, because golly, what a difference. I mean, I think, Scott, last week with that atrocity of the number of passing yards the Broncos relinquished to Jameis Winston and specifically Jerry Jeudy, I think there was kind of a perfect storm of factors that led to that. But conspicuously amongst those factors was certainly Moss's absence, the communication factor. I'm seeing questions here like, hey, has Levi Wallace been dispatched to purgatory yet? Like, no, we told you he wasn't going to get cut. There was a lot of things going on there, but to me, Scott, it really just seemed like a communication lapse.
I want to show you something real quick. Nick sent this to me today, and I apologize that this is a Falcons clip, but it was this is on X, Chad, so it should be all right. And no sound also.
I don't know on Facebook, dude. If Facebook's they're pretty.
I'll buy you a new channel if I end up screwing the whole thing up. But this going to, we said, is Levi Wallace really that bad? Or is this just, a communication thing and you get a doubt? And am I supposed to be here or am I supposed to be there? And how it can make you look just incredibly foolish.
Yeah.
Well, there was a guy today playing for the Atlanta Falcons who had one of those moments. And I promise you, let me see if I can, I need to bring down, where's the play button on this? Oh, I have to play it from here.
Just hit spacebar.
Watch his poor defensive back. He thinks he's got help on this side.
Oh, man. Brutal.
You see what doubt can do to a professional athlete? Inside, outside? Hell, I don't know where it is. Where's the ball? Jesus.
Yeah. Plus that it's him, that it's that guy running that wide open is also
I know. So
ridiculous.
There's busts all over the place.
Yeah.
My point on Monday was Levi Wallace isn't as bad as he looked. This is what not being quite sure and why it's like being a rookie out there. And why we don't like playing rookies, what it can do to you. So I would expect Levi Wallace, especially with the bye week, if he's been getting reps with the ones, to be significantly, and yes, he set a low bar, significantly improved over what he was if he needs to go. But yes, he's certainly the underdog when compared to Riley Moss. And speaking of underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. Join over 5 million fans who are already playing on Underdog. With their pick'em game, you could win money by making entries with your favorite players, compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog.
That's right. With their champs game, you could win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats. Simple stuff that we all follow, like passing yards, interceptions, touchdowns, much more. Like, for example, this coming week, is Bo Nix going to have higher than, say, 220 passing yards? Is he going to have more than 1.5 touchdowns, more or less, right? Every dog deserves a second chance. And with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose.
So download the Underdog app today and use code MHUDDLE to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, download the Underdog app today and use our code MHUDDLE to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Every player, every touchdown, just select higher or lower on Underdog.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void. Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. All right, back to the conversation. We have the illustrious, wondrous, wonderful Lady D, Deanna Hendry, jumping in from the top rope. Have I mentioned to you before, Deanna, that that's my mother-in-law's name is Deanna? Just slightly different spelling. 1 N for my mother-in-law to your 2 N's. So really cool. Very generous super chat, Lady D. Thank you so much. We love you. She says, evening, Chad and Deacon Scott. Super excited for the Broncos. I am hoping we play the Steelers over the Bills. Just want us to win against the Chargers. Hashtag MHH for life. Hashtag Broncos country. You should be excited because, you know, the Broncos have had a modicum of control over their, well, let's just say last year. For a very small window, they had a very kind of loose grip on their playoff destiny, and it quickly failed coming out of that 5-game winning streak. And they had no margin for error. It was a bummer. But this is the first time in December since 2016, when the Broncos went 9-7, that you're really competitively relevant and you're trending for the playoffs. And you've got the franchise quarterback, the Youngs. I mean, I guess we shouldn't glaze him fully quite yet, Scott, but trending toward franchise quarterback. And so, yeah, you can balance the scales. If the Chargers lose tonight, you're both 8-5. You handle your business at home next week against the Colts. You still got to take on a wily Joe Burrow-led Bengals team. Then you get to face the Chargers. But, hey, their season's not done yet either, Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Deanna. I don't get to say that enough for you when you come in. When I'm not on here, when you're on here is what I'm trying to spit out. So thank you so much for what you do for us at Mile High Huddle. And frankly, I'm not a huge fan of playoffs. I never have been. Just because, again, you get a 9-7 team like the New York Giants, and they go and get hot and they win and they beat 3 teams that they lost to. Anyway, this is what it's supposed to look like. When the worst team getting in right now is 8-5, that's legit. Not sneaking in at 8-9.
Right.
So the Denver Broncos are a good football team. The LA Chargers are a good football team. If those are your 2 wild cards, those are 2 legitimate teams. So, and that's what's exciting to me for y'all in Broncos country is last year it felt flukish. It's like, oh, we're going to get 5 turnovers and we're going to win on a last-second field goal or something. Yay, we won. Beats losing. I know that, but it didn't feel sustainable. This is a good football team. They're well coached. Special teams are good. Offense keeps improving to the point where now it's at least average with a just top 5 defense that nobody saw coming, that has been sustained over the course of 13 games to say this defense is legit.
Yeah. The only thing that really worries me, and I'll touch wood as I say this, about the Broncos down the stretch is the inconsistency of their run game. But nobody can be perfect across the board. No team can, we know there's the juggernauts, but it's hard for a team to just have every hatch completely battened down, especially when you're in year 2 of a complete regime change.
And carrying $70 million and $80 million in dead cap.
Exactly. That does not, Scott, get a light does not get shined on that particular statistic. In fact, enough to not only explain some of the things we see with the Broncos this year, but in all honesty, giving them props and Coach Payton. I mean, they are outkicking their coverage. I mean, they have a ridiculous amount of money dead that other teams were able to use on their rosters with players, personnel that they're just sitting on. They can't do anything with it. They're just watching Russell Wilson win games for the Steelers. So that'll be nice next year. You like what's happening this year? Next year is going to be even cooler because you're going to have a lot more resources to build the nest.
No, the offseason is going to be a blast. And as silly as it sounds, I'm the kid that got Madden and never actually played the games. I'd simulate the games just so I could go draft and go to free agency. That's what I get excited about, is the strategy of team building. I know that's kind of defeats the purpose, but that's what happens when you grow up in Atlanta in the 80s and you watch a team that doesn't win for 11 straight years.
Dude, I remember when Madden first came out in the 90s and buying it and loving it. And then when it first gave you the option for a full season where it would track the stats, you'd have your schedule. I mean, what it's become now is ridiculous, but yeah, Madden definitely contributed, I think, Scott, to the NFL becoming the 800-pound gorilla that it has in the sports.
Do you know what the other part of that is? Fantasy.
Yeah.
It's fantasy football because everybody's watching every game now because they've got a rooting interest in all of those games. So yes, I was one of those geeks that was following the draft in 1989 and playing fantasy football in 1993.
Right.
And people looked at you then like, what are you doing? That's weird. Yeah, well, I think it's cool. And so yes, where were we going with this? I'm going to come back to Eric and see if I can grab that train of thought that has run off the rails like it does for me. Eric, appreciate the stars coming on Facebook. I'm keeping an eye out. If you had,
we were talking about the off season and how it's going to be bad.
Else to say, oh yeah, it is. Oh, that's what it was going to be. Thank you, Eric, for kicking back into this. We were talking about running game, $70 million.
Yeah.
If you have a portion of that, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, one of those 3 guys is a Denver Bronco, and probably Josh Jacobs.
Right.
So, yes, it matters. The salary cap is a myth. My ass, it's a myth. Wait until you're up against it and tell me it's a myth.
Peyton loves Josh Jacobs. I agree with you. If they had just a little bit more breathing room there.
Yeah.
But
it's a myth. Look at the Saints. Yeah, look at the Saints. They're 4-8 and they're old and broke.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
But it's crazy, Scott. I just wrote, since you brought up the Saints, I want to bring this up because it's a Bo Nix. It's a little bit of a Bo Nix flex. But or over the weekend, I wrote up an article featuring a unique statistic, uh, relative to quarterbacks avoiding sacks and whatnot. The quarterback who gets sacked at the lowest rate on third down, Derek Carr. And I remember when Vic Fangio was haunting Dove Valley, man, you want to talk about glazing, guys. Of all the quarterbacks the Broncos would face, including, twice a year divisional foes, Fangio was never one to give much by way of praise, props, compliments, but Derek
Especially to his
Carr,
own guys.
he would true. But Derek Carr, he would always stop and be like, man, he's just tough to get to. Just gets rid of that ball. You could see the respect. So Derek Carr, number one. Bo Nix. So it goes Derek, hardest quarterbacks getting sacked on third down at the lowest rate, according to the 33rd team. Here's number one lowest rate: Derek Carr, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Bo Nix. So I like that about Bo Nix. We're seeing it, all the things Sean Payton talked about before the season started, before we all really got a chance to get a grip on Bo Nix. He's like, hey, the things we saw in his tape, we're seeing it now in OTAs. And we just had to kind of trust that what he was saying was true, but we're seeing it come out in the wash, Scott.
Yeah, and the idea of which guys are hard to sack, that is Bo Nix for sure. He'll play hot potato with the ball if he needs to. He's mobile and he's strong. Those are all good things, and he's smart. The to recognize pressure and know where your hot read is. That's a skill set. And the thing when you're doing the evaluation process, it's hard to quantify that. Is this the scheme? Is it the level of competition? It's hard to quantify that. That's why quarterback is the hardest position to evaluate by traits, by saying height, weight, speed. Where we say his his arm strength is this. Well, that doesn't necessarily matter nearly as much as, can he pick up a blitz? Can he diagnose a play before it starts? And that's hard to see in this game, where this game is, height, weight, speed for just about every other position. About dumped a cup of water in my lap. That would have been good. Let's get to George too. George, good to see you. He says, I'm thinking we would have a better chance against the Steelers and the Bills, but just making the playoffs makes my ears out. I wasn't sure where we'd be this year.
Yeah.
Hashtag MHH for life. Remember to hit the thumbs up, guys. Good advice from George. And yes, and for me, the big difference in this team, why is this team so much better off than I expected at the beginning of the year, preseason, through 2 games? It's the defense.
Yeah.
Not in my wildest dreams did I ever think this defense would be this good. We're thinking if we can get Bo Nix playing it to a mid-tier level as a rookie, trust me, that's good. That'll get you rookie of the year if you're the 15th best quarterback in the NFL as a rookie. And can you be okay? Can you move up to just average on defense? Because you weren't average last year. You were below average on just about everything. And then maybe you can hover around 500, maybe not. The running game could hurt. The lack of experience of wide receiver could hurt. But this defense has been nails, man. And that's the biggest surprise to me on the year.
I would agree that it's been the tip of the spear, but I also think that when Sean Payton talks about how this team wouldn't have won that game, last year's team wouldn't have won that game, and how this year's team is different, I think we got to really keep Bo Nix front and center in the calculus there, because even though statistically you can look at Bo and Russ up until week 13 of these 2 respective seasons and go, compare the numbers and whatnot. The one big glaring difference from Bo Nix, aside from some of the stuff you talked about earlier, Scott, where, Sean Payton can count on him to do what he's supposed to do, be where he's supposed to be, deliver, execute, all that. But it's the turnovers. Now, look, Russ wasn't exactly a huge interception machine last year, but going into coming out of week 13, I should say, he had, let me count real quick, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 interceptions. Isn't that what Bo's at right now? Okay.
And 6 of those were like in the first 4 games.
Then He had also, let me count these real quick. Lost fumbles. Hold on. Okay, fumbles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fumbles. So he's basically almost doubled or cut by 50%. Or what's the math on that? Anyway, significant decrease in turnovers, which, man, it makes a huge difference. Just look at that Monday night game. I mean, the way that
I was actually I was looking it up today, just a few minutes ago, to see if there were updated numbers for the top turnover teams, and there's kind of an anomaly at the top and the bottom for, there's a losing team in the top and there's a winning team at the bottom, but otherwise it's almost the single best indicator of record in the entire NFL is turnover margin. So these are the top teams in turnover margin.
That's interesting, huh?
Buffalo Bills, Pittsburgh Steelers, LA Chargers, anomaly, Chicago Bears,
Weird.
Houston Texans, Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings, Philadelphia Eagles, Washington Commanders, Denver Broncos. Now let's go to the bottom, and I'm going to go from the worst up.
Yeah.
Las Vegas Raiders, Tennessee Titans, Jacksonville Jaguars, Cleveland Browns, Atlanta Falcons, New York Giants, Dallas Cowboys, and then that's kind of where the breaking point is, because then it goes Seattle Seahawks, but then it goes to New England Patriots, Carolina Panthers, Kansas City Chiefs. So what did I name? 9?
Yeah.
Out of the bottom 9, there's one team with a winning record in there. And then at the other end, out of the top 10 that I mentioned, there's one team with a losing record. So yes, cutting 7 turnovers out of 13 games matters.
And even that Monday night game,
not to mention the sacks.
Not to mention
that's
another great
negative
point.
Plays.
That's another great point. Bo Nix has been sacked 19 times through week 13. Let me find it here. Sacks. Okay, through week 13, 5, 6, 8, 12, 18, 19, 23, 27, 28, 29, 31, 38 times, Scott.
So you've cut the sacks in half, and the turnovers are about in half also.
Ridiculous.
So your offense isn't beating you, and your defense is capable of winning games.
Yep.
And now, frankly, your offense is playing at a level where it can get into a shootout with somebody if you need to.
True. The Ronk checking in. What's up, big dog, on Facebook? How many NFL games does the Broncos need to win after the Dolphins beat the Jets today to make the 2024 NFL playoffs? They got to get to 10 wins because there's 4 games left on the Broncos schedule. They got to win 2 of them. They're in. Basically is how you look at it, because they have a 2-game lead. But Scott, we'd have to look at some of the little tiebreakers and stuff to be certain of that. I would say to guarantee it, you got to win 3, but maybe you know something I don't.
Yes, but realistically, 10's going to do it.
I think so too.
10's going to do it because the Jets would have to. I mean, the Dolphins would have to win out, and their slate doesn't look all that bad, except 3 of their next 4 are on the road: at Texans, 49ers, at Browns, at Jets.
Yep.
You look at those, you're like, yeah, but the Browns stink. The Jets stink. Yeah, but 3 out of 4 on the road, you're losing one of those. I don't care who you're playing.
Well, plus, dude, the Browns are dangerous. They can come at your throat one game.
No, they won their Super Bowl against the Steelers, and then they're like, okay, we're done. We don't need to beat the Steelers again.
It was brutal. I watched a good chunk of that game today. Jameis, man, praying for the good Lord to deliver him from the pick sixes.
Yeah. Tomlin, there's some really good Coach of the Year candidates this year, because trying to predict how the season was going to go, there's been some very wild swings in expectations versus results, including the Denver Broncos. So Mike Tomlin's in there for me. Kevin O'Connell, Vikings.
Yeah, he's got to be near the top.
He's my number 1.
Yeah. Especially because of how he's doing it with the quarterback and all that.
Yeah, with it's like they were picked. You would have taken them to be picking number 1 before you'd have them making the playoffs.
Yep.
And they're 11-2.
Wow.
That's astounding.
On the heels of a very productive first season of Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, and they've got these weird swings. So the second season that Nick and I did this, he pointed out, that the one score games are pretty fluid. So they went 11-1 in one score games 2 years ago. He's like, that'll balance out. And it did. They were like 3-6 next year. Well, they're like 8-1 again this year in one score games. That's coaching. But Mike Tomlin, Sean Payton, I think Dan Quinn has done a very good job with the Washington Commanders. That's 4. Who else have I seen that's in this? Dan Campbell might get the achievement award. Yes, his team's loaded now, but he's built that team and he hasn't gotten it. Kind of like the Lord of the Rings trilogy. None of the first 2 movies won a single award, so they just waited until the whole trilogy was done, and then they just gave him everything.
Yeah,
that might be Dan Campbell this year.
I think so. I mean, I like Detroit as my Super Bowl favorite. Now, that's not me trying to shade the Broncos, but I'm just being honest and realistic. We saw what happened last year. Broncos will get there. This season, they've taken a huge step in the right direction. And I'm sorry, who was it that said it? Just making the playoffs would be an achievement for me in this season. Totally, dude. You're getting all this bad juju. You're working it out of the system. And it's circulating out. You snap the Chiefs thing, you snap the Raiders thing. Now it's time to deliver not only a winning season, but the playoff berth. Phil, what's up, big dog? Great to see you down in Tucson. Says, good evening, Chad and Deacon Scott. Do we draft a running back or get a free agent or both? Hashtag Buckham MHH for life. Hashtag Broncos for life. Love it, dude. Thank you, Phil. Scott, what do you got for him?
Both. I think you will have, now I'm not saying they'll all make the roster, but I think you'll see at least 2 new faces in camp next year, and one of them will be a free agent, and one of them will be a draftee. So you end up with Blake Watson, Bidet coming off injury, McLaughlin, Estime, draft pick, free agent, competing for roster spots. And if they put 3 of those guys on the roster this year. 4. They took 4. Yeah, they put 4 on the active roster because that's where I felt like Tim Patrick lost his spot, because on the active roster, the initial 53, they had Javonte, Jaleel, Audric, and Blake Watson on the initial 53. I'm like, that 4th running back was a surprise. Yeah, that was your Tim Patrick spot right there.
True. Here's let me get it on screen. This is Spot Rack.
I don't know that you'll be able to spend like you did last. Like the guy, there's not going to be a Derrick Henry, Saquon, Josh Jacobs available, but you'll see at least two new names come in.
Here's who they have based on their previous annual money made. Here's their top guys. But I'll just list through a few, Scott, and then I want to hear the ones you think might be interesting. So Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, Jeff Wilson, AJ Dillon, Nick Chubb. This is 2025 free agent projected running backs. Javonte Williams, there he is. Ezekiel Elliott. Let's see. Alexander Madison, Travis Homer, Miller Hines, Amir Abdullah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. J.K. Dobbins is interesting to me, Scott. But who do you like here? I could keep going.
There's not a lot in there that really, fluffs my pillow, so to speak. But it's supposed to be a really good draft. So I think you draft one, and then maybe you bring in a guy, an undrafted. It might be an undrafted free agent, but I think there'll be 2 names in there. I just don't think you're not going to get a $7 million running back next year. That guy's not going to be available this year. But you're going to bring in some new faces, and one of them will probably be a draft pick. And a day 2 pick on a running back is a premium pick. We say this all the time, but you can get a premium player on day 2 at a non-premium position. So if you were to draft a center in the 2nd round, that's a big spend on a center. That's a big spend on a guard. That's a big spend on a running back, safety, or tight end. One of those 5 positions, if I'm drafting one of those guys on day 2, I'm looking for starters. And you can hit on those guys on day 2. Troy, appreciate the stars. He says, I'm so disgusted to say this, but I'm rooting for the Chiefs tonight. Seems better if the Chargers lose for us. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. And the thing is you might dislike the Chiefs more right now, but there's no harm in rooting against another division rival. And I'll tell you one thing. there's not a whole lot of crossover between NFL fans and international football fans. I happen to be one of those guys. And I always say I don't care if you think soccer sucks or not. It doesn't matter. Some of the ways they handle the league and the player movement is really cool. And this is where ties come in. Everybody hates draws. You ever watch a game and say, I wish both of these sons of so's could lose? Brother, that's what a tie is.
Yeah.
You watch them and you get 3 points for a win and 1 point for a draw. When they tie, they both lose points and your money. So if you were watching this game and this was like a soccer game, you'd be hoping they tie, because that's like them both losing. But I wish they both could lose. They can. They're called draws.
You're not wrong, Troy. It's more beneficial to the Broncos if the Chargers lose, because that brings them to both at 8-5, and then they'll get a chance to square off for the last word, let's call it, in a few weeks' time. So that could be the difference. Again, if you're joining us now and you weren't here early, that could be the difference between the Broncos getting in as the 7th seed and having to face the Buffalo Bills in upstate New York in the first weekend, or having to go and face the Steelers. Neither is a walk in the park, but you're picking your poison there. And I think most people, Scott, would say, hey, go ahead and give us the Steelers there. Michaela Parker jumping in again. Love you so much, Michaela. Love you so much. Hope your mom's doing well. Keep me in the loop. Anything we can do, that. She wants to know, why is Blake Watson she's saying, why isn't Blake Watson playing? He can't be worse than Pookie.
I actually like the Freud thinks there's no accidents. Pokey sounds about right now.
Yeah.
Or Pokey.
Yeah, just poking around back there,
Dylan, I think Dylan had the write-up this week about, Audric Estime playing more, and he has played more. Pookie's had some limited touches, but I knew it was bad. But what was it over the 3 of the last 4 games? And those 3 games, if you take the Falcons defense out of it, those other 3 games were something like 12 carries for 0.
Nothing.
A complete goose egg. Brother, that's almost impossible. That's almost statistically impossible to do.
Yeah. I mean, the writing, if you're the Peyton and the Broncos coaches, the writing is on the wall. It's been brutal. So, and the cool thing about, we'll get to the Blake Watson thing, but the cool thing about Audric Estime is the big concern was his ball security, but ever since they put him in the doghouse, forced him to carry the ball around after week 7, he's been reliable in that sense. And you can see it in how he runs. He's much more conscious of where that ball is and what he's doing with it. But Blake Watson, it's another rookie type situation where, Estime is your 5th round pick, and we're sitting here going, hey, more Estime, the undrafted guy that kind of bounced back from the practice squad. Then now he's on the 53 thanks to Bidet's injury and whatnot. He's kind of your wellspring. He's your last guy to shut the lights off if you really have to go nuclear at running back because of the injury bug. So, but I'll say this, Michaela, the run game has been bad enough of late, the last quarter of the season, that you got to start looking for answers that you haven't really used up to this point, I would think. And that's one of the benefits of the bye. Gives you the time to self-scout, kind of recalibrate. What are we missing? What do we need to tweak here? So, Scott, it will be interesting to see what the running back touch share looks like coming out of this.
Yeah, and again, part of it was, that false dawn against Atlanta.
Yeah.
And Atlanta's defense is so bad that you start feeling, again, there can be some false positives in there. And what was interesting is like, oh, you want to ride the hot hand, but it's almost like the old saying with quarterbacks, you got 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. Well, you don't really have one running back right now. And yes, in this last game, what they were trying to do with some of the backside cuts and whatnot and the wide zone looks, the speedier back was the right option. And I just wonder with Javonte, I know the results haven't been there, but it seems like every time he touches the ball, he is just swarmed in the backfield. I'm like, are they doing something to tip off the plays?
Right.
Because it felt like the original Tecmo Bowl. There was like 8 plays to choose from, and you had a 1 in 8 chance of choosing the right play. And if you did, it just completely collapsed on the guy.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. And so it's not all on him, but his days are numbered. His days as a Denver Bronco are almost over. If he lasts through the season, he won't be back in 2025, unfortunately. And I hope it comes back together for him after the injury, because he's still young and he'll get a chance somewhere. And I hope he can find it. But it's not going to happen this year with the Denver Broncos, and he's out of contract.
Dat gum the injury bug, because Pookie, man, he was on pace to be a special unit before that multi-ligament. If this was 15 years ago, knee injury, it would have probably ended his career. Dat gummit. Michaela jumping in again for the third time this evening, because she's one of the first faces etched on the MHH Mount Rushmore. You want to talk about being glazed? She's been glazed and enshrined. We love you, Michaela. If the Broncos will make the playoffs and make some noise, Pookie can't see the field this season. In other words, if you want to see the Broncos make the playoffs and then go on to make some noise, now is the time to really sit him down. Let him be your nuclear option of like, oh, everyone in this game just got hurt. Pookie, you're in the
let's get Estime some experience being the number one guy for when we need him to be the number one guy.
And maybe they've been holding back for that very reason, Scott. Maybe they've been kind of letting him stay fresh for this stretch run. We'll see. But you know what? Who can't be discounted in this calculus is Jaleel McLaughlin, he's done pretty well the last little bit. Last game, Cleveland, 84 yards, led the team, 6-yard average. The game before, Scott, in Vegas, 7 totes, 44 yards, and a touch.
I think he should have a roster spot for the next 5 years as a number 3 guy.
Didn't produce too well in against the Falcons. Kansas City only carried it twice, but he's got himself a little bit of momentum. He just has to be used the right way. He's not a bell cow. You got to kind of get him out in space and, shell game it, get guys pulling, get things moving, and then they can't see him, and boom, he bursts through and he's off to the races.
And right now, and as Chad said at the beginning of the podcast, one of the things that scares him the most is the lack of a consistent running game. And right now, the offense is based on the quick passing game as an extension of your running game.
Yep.
Whatever you get out from there is just kind of gravy. But this offense is based on and if I throw in an RPO look and Bo running, if I need to, he could be the number one running threat. But the quick passing game is an extension of the running game is what you're looking for. And once the deep shots started happening, that quick passing game opened up. You got out of the phone booth that you're in at the beginning of the season.
Dude, that's another thing that I just have this sneaking suspicion that Sean Payton has pared back. Remember, all of a sudden, Bo Nix was this rushing quarterback and then nothing. And I have this suspicion that he's kind of holding back on that as well, trying to lull people to sleep a little for the stretch run. Because, I mean, even just today, watching that Steelers game, Steelers-Browns, there's one play in particular, it was like a 3rd and medium, and not 3rd and medium, it was like 3rd and 3, something like that. And Cleveland sold out to stop the run, and it was a little fake, and Russ just ran around the tackle, picked up 13 and skidded. I'm like, look, I think you're at a point now with Bo Nix where you've lulled him to sleep enough. You can get away with a few of those in the 4 games that remain, and maybe even use it, Scott, as a weapon in the playoffs. We'll see, because you got to find that rushing production somewhere. It can't just be what did Bill Walsh call the short passing game? The long handoff. It can't just be that, because great defensive coordinators are going to be in the tournament. They know how to neutralize.
Yeah, and as you're saying with showcasing it, and Russ will showcase it just enough to know that you have to respect it. Bo's actually a weapon in the running game. He's not one that's going to 99 times in a run option, a read option, he's going to hand it off. He'll keep it when he needs to, and he's really smart about it. He's really smart about it. I watched one of the worst decision makers play in my life this year. I watched a lot of Auburn Tigers football, and
boom.
He always made the wrong choice, is what I'm trying to say. Bo's not like that. Deanna's in here making choices for us. What are you guys going to do? This is what you're going to do, said Deanna. You're going to read my super chat right now. And she says, I think Estime needs more touches. I just want to win and get to the playoffs. I like when Bo runs too. # Nile High Huddle. This is our Egypt version for life. and bridge the gap.
Yeah. I got some fun
Chad's
bridge the
band's
gap
pretty,
stuff.
that's pretty sweet. I want to be Chad. I want to be Chad Jensen when I grow up. Let's be honest.
I've got some fun bridge the gap stuff to share at the end of the stream, so stay with us. If
Punk
that
rock
interests you.
superstar, or at least mid-star.
Punk rock
absolutely living the dream.
Just doing it for fun, This is
awesome. It's so cool. And Deanna, thank you so much for letting us do this.
Oh my goodness.
Fun. Because we wouldn't be able to do this without y'all. We'd have to actually like work for a living. And I'm too old to go back to work. So thank you so much. And yeah, Estime needs more touches. And he's got the signature run. Whenever I'm doing a story on Estime and I type in Estime into the photo search, and there's that big leaping hurdle of him, I'm like, man, that's just awesome. That's explosion. And he's got a game that translates well to the NFL just with his ability to break tackles. So I'm looking forward to him. And I like having McLaughlin on the team. I want McLaughlin to be on this team for a while as a third option. I don't want him being 1 or 2, but I like having him there. I think he's a productive member of the 53 and will be for a long time. Just like you, hopefully you'll be with us for a long time too, Deanna.
Yeah, Lady D, love you so much. Thank you. Like I said, I got a little bridge the gap news to share at the end. It's kind of fun. But don't let Scott fool you. This guy works his tail off. The difference is what we do for work, for a living, and so do I. It doesn't feel like work. So sometimes you start feeling guilty. You're like, wait a minute. If you're lucky enough to even make a buck doing something you love, thank God, thank your lucky stars, whoever that supreme or what that supreme thing for you is, because you're blessed. And Lady D, Michaela, everyone in the chat tonight throwing down are evidence of how Scott and I, Zach, all of us here at MHH are very, very blessed. So love you. Thank you, Lady D. Phil, if Bowles leaves, do our draft priorities change? Again, is it going to be if Bowles leaves, draft, free agency, both? Man, I shudder to think. Look, I'm not on that let Bowles walk train. Like, I don't know how and exactly why Zach and I have kind of a point of demarcation on this point.
People forget how much money he makes right now.
Say that again.
The idea of him getting is like when you say you could franchise tag him, people are like, "Are you out of your minds?" I'm like, how much do you think more a franchise tag would be on him than what he already makes?
Yeah.
$7 million. That's it.
Right.
He's already on 20. He's already like one of the, he's in that 10 to 12 range, and putting him up to 5 isn't that much more.
Yeah.
It's not like we're talking where the number 10 quarterback is $30 million and the number 5 is 60. It's not double.
Yeah.
It's not that much more if you needed to franchise him, if you thought. And Phil, I'm sorry, when you said if Bowles leaves, is our draft priority changed? Has it changed? And I snickered because I get so tired of all the coach speak BS. It's best position available. We'll evaluate our needs, but we're going to go with the best player on the board. Come on. You know how refreshing it is? I don't know how much college football you see. Do you know who is like opening the door behind all this stuff right now? It's Nick Saban. He's freaking hilarious online, and he's cussing his tail off on ESPN, which is really funny. He had something he called out. He was between Sarkisian and Kirby Smart as they both just coach speak their way, and he goes, "Yeah, these guys are both BSing us," and he said it right now, and this is what they really mean. I'm like, thank you, because both of those guys coached for him, especially Kirby, for a long time.
Right.
Does your draft priority change? Yes, Phil, it does. It means if you're close, if you've got them in a tier, if you've got a ranking 1 through 15, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to take the number, the highest guy on your board when it comes up. You might have a grade on a guy where you got 3, 4, and 5 are all 94s out of 100. Okay. If Bowles is gone and I don't replace him and I don't have an answer right there, and one of those 3 guys that's a 94 that is tied for the lead on my draft board is an offensive tackle, I'm taking the offensive tackle, even if I happen to list him because I like this guy just a little bit, just a shade better. I'm taking the offensive tackle. So, Phil, yes, Bowles is going to be the key to how we attack as analysts of the Denver Broncos on Mile High Huddle this offseason.
Agreed. And Ronk, does Bowles want to be here? That's the question. I promise you, Bowles wants to be here. Uh, he loves everyone dearly. That's his favorite thing to say. I love him dearly. He's a Rocky Mountain guy. Went to Utah, spent his whole career in Denver, slugging it out. Blocking blindside for a who's list of quarterback purgatory caliber quarterbacks. And now you finally get a guy, and you're in a contract year. Nah, dude. Bowles is also, because of that, in my opinion, this is just a hunch. I'm not talking. Bowles isn't texting me his deepest, darkest desires, but because of what I just said and other factors, I think that he'd be willing to take a little bit less to stay in Denver. I really do.
Why?
Why?
I don't think he'll have to.
I don't think he'll have to either, but I think he'll want to.
No, I think he'll want to stay in Denver if it's close, but I don't think he's going for the home team discount. He hasn't gone this
far.
Not
necessarily. I'm saying
it would be minuscule.
If the push comes to shove, and let's say he's looking at 3 or 4 different offers potentially.
The Bengals offered him 80 across 3 years, and the Broncos offered him 75 over 3 years. He might take the 75.
Yes, within
he's
scale.
Not taking 15 over 25 million a year.
Right. He's not gonna step over a dime or a dollar to pick up a dime. But I'm saying, things being relative, he will look for reasons to stay if he's offered that opportunity. And I hope he does, not only because he's honestly one of the most underrated Broncos of this kind of crap era that we've all lived through. He's one of the most underrated Broncos. And he's a lot better than people realize. And I think he's suffered in the wilderness along with a lot of those other guys. And I'd like to see him be a part of this Nix era that's coming, that's going to be finally productive.
There's guys you're happy for. You're like, I'm so happy for this player because he's been through the hard times. Again, growing up in Atlanta, the Braves moved on from Dale Murphy like in 1990. Well, in 1991, they go worst to first and are in this, 4 of the next 5 World Series. You just feel bad. You feel bad about something like that. Meanwhile, Freddie Freeman hangs on 1 more year and wins a World Series for the Atlanta Braves. So, and you're happy for guys like that. And you kind of wish that Justin Simmons would have gotten a taste of that, because he's a good guy. And you're happy that Tim Patrick is getting to get something like that now. And you want this for Bowles.
Yeah.
And Troy, your root for a tie rant cracked me up. Thanks for making our evening fun. Well, people who hate soccer, they hate on ties. There's ties can be good. Like I said, right. You ever watch a game and say, I wish both of these could just fall in the frickin' ocean? There you go. It's for when you're watching other teams. That's when you love the tie.
Okay, listen, guys. We're at the 2-minute warning, and to kind of spice things up, I'm going to share something with you. So, if you guys recall, back in February, I was gone for like a month, almost a month from the streams, right? And Scott and Zach were holding it down. It's because me and my buddies in Bridge the Gap, we were recording new music, and we've kind of been sitting on it, waiting for the right time to put it out, find the right kind of label partners and stuff. And the time has come to start releasing music, and that starts on Friday. And so I'm going to drop a link right here in our chat. And what it is, it's called a pre-save link. If you listen on Spotify, if you listen on Apple or Amazon, any of the places that you stream music, you click this link, you go save it, and the day it comes out, it's going to put it right in front of you so you don't forget. It's called a pre-save link, but I'm going to give you a little teaser. This dropped today. It's a song called In the Throes. Tell me what you think. It's like 15 seconds, 20 seconds long, and then I'll drop the link, and then we'll see what's left in the chat and then dip on out of here.
Love creature lurks within my bones, and I feel it rising fast. It's the dark night of the soul. I'm the train that jumped the track. I can't negotiate or plead with the lizard being deep inside of me. So check it out, you guys. I'm dropping the link. I don't want to be I'm not going to pester y'all too much about this kind of stuff. I know some of you are very interested in it. And the very first video that
we dropped. You guys slammed that link. It's the #1 video on that record label's YouTube channel, and it was our first ever song because of y'all. So speaking for all the guys in Bridge the Gap, we appreciate that. So go save it. I just dropped the link. Go save it, and it's going to be out on Friday. But Scott, do we have any other comments that we missed earlier? Supers or stars?
I think we're good on business here. So wanted to say hello to Pearl. Pearl's in here.
Pearl.
Roy also. Good to see you, Roy. Patrick has come in over on Facebook. Some of our favorites over there on Facebook that we didn't get a chance to say hello to yet. Hello. Aloha is perfect.
Yeah.
The hello and goodbye. Aloha.
Yeah. Roy Osborne as well. It's good to see you. Shouts to Dylan helping us keep things on the straight and narrow on YouTube. Good to see you today, big dog. All right, guys. Few little things here, and we're going to sign off. Make sure you're following this podcast account on X, on Twitter, at the MHH Pod, the main account at Mile High Huddle. Connect with our Facebook page for the podcast, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You want to grab yourself one of these still beautiful Broncos country. Isn't a geographic location. It's a state of being. MHH hoodies. Go to mhhmerch.com. Get your swag on. I'm going to trigger Scott because we have a disagreement about what swag means. Instagram at mile_high_huddle. And that just reminded me. Let me see. Instagram, no comments or questions from y'all today. So bummer. But follow us over there. We're doing a lot more content, dropping a lot more stuff, covering the Broncos on Instagram. So make sure, guys. I mean, if you don't have an Instagram account, it's December 8th, 2024. You're probably not a social media person. It's a lot of fun though. Leave us a 5-star review. We used to hammer you in asking, please, Apple Podcasts, leave us the 5-star, and you guys answered the bell. But it is now just as crucial for Spotify. So please, and the cool thing about it on Spotify is you're not expected to type out a bunch of paragraphs. You just leave a star rating and you're done. So hook us up over there. We appreciate you. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. And hey, if we really move the needle for you, if you really appreciate the hard work tonight, you can share this video on your social media. Help us grow, reach those like-minded Broncos fans who right now, they're wandering the desert, blind and deaf to this community, waiting to embrace them. You guys can help by sharing. Ron, great show tonight. Chad and Scott on the MHH podcast. Go Bo Broncos. Scott, always fun chopping it up, dude. That time actually went quite fast. We're at 57 minutes, dude.
Yeah, we were like, well, maybe we do 30 minutes or so, depending on how it goes. And then, then Deanna and Michaela and Phil and everybody coming here. We're going to say our hellos and goodbyes, our alohas to everyone right now, because Deanna, I'm afraid to show my hair. Mine's all slicked back, so you don't want to see my hair. I don't normally wear a hat.
Look, I don't even worry about it anymore.
You can see mine most of the time. I don't normally wear a hat in the mornings. But Deanna, awesome. Thank you again so much. It means the world to us. Closing out the year, getting towards the holidays and all that stuff. It certainly helps keep the lights on, keeps my forehead nice and shiny. So I'm gonna save you for last as we come back down with our goodbyes. David McElrath coming with $5. Taylor kicking us off as well. Michaela coming in several times. Thank you, Michaela, and everything that you do for the Mile High Huddle brand. Eric Flynn, George Fox, Phil, Troy over on Facebook, Michael, obviously, and then red hot Deanna Hendry coming in from Alaska, if I'm not mistaken. So in the Great White North type area, that's probably Canada.
Frozen tundra.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And it just reminded me, that just this community is so big. And I'm like, Denver isn't a huge market. And then I started thinking, okay, well, yeah, but they've got like Kansas City to San Francisco, north and south to themselves.
Right.
And we've got so many people, Wyoming, we got a ton of people from Arizona, Michael, Phil coming in, and then obviously Denver and beyond. And as Broncos country has worked its way international as well. So thank y'all for being here. It's great being part of this community.
Indeed. Well said, my friend. I don't remember Zach's spiel, so I'm just going to sign off in my own way, and I'm going to ban this cat right now that's trying to
Yeah, we must be doing something right. The
Spammers.
spammers are coming back in. I've gotten rid of 2 of them today, and that means
Jack
Dylan's probably gotten 10.
All right, guys. Hey, love you. We'll be back tomorrow. Is Broncos for Breakfast streaming tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll be on tomorrow.
So you got Nick and Scott on the Bright. We'll see if Zach is able to join us tomorrow night. If not, it'll probably be Scott and myself. And we'll start really looking ahead to the Colts because we'll have also had the opportunity to hear from Coach Payton, to hear how the bye went, but what's maybe perhaps very slim possibility, but maybe some injury updates, especially Riley Moss, but we'll see. So for Scott, I'm Chad. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.